today I'm going to teach you how to design any task flow using Cotiv. To start off with, what is a task flow? A task is a specific action, whereas a task flow is what strings many tasks together to reach a specific goal. When we're designing a task flow, you need to start with the end in mind. You need to think about what is your goal and how do you know when that goal has been achieved. In the example that I'm going to teach you today, which is procurement, our goal is to be able to order and then receive an item in a business. So my example would be Johnny has run out of paper and he needs to order new paper, but he needs to have it approved by somebody before he can receive the paper, because he mustn't just go spending the company's money all over the place. So we know that this has been achieved when the paper has been ordered and it has been received by Johnny. And I'm going to be using sticky notes to show you how to design this task flow, and that's the same way that you can do it. So we're going to start off by saying our end goal is that Johnny has received his paper, and I've written here on this piece of paper, he's received the ordered items. So I'm going to put this one right at the bottom to start off with. Okay. So once we've identified our end goal, we want to identify the individual tasks that are going to help us reach the end goal. A task should only perform one specific action, not many different things. And tasks can either be automated or they might need to have some human input. An automated task would be something like an email that gets sent off, or it could be information that's captured and put into a Google spreadsheet. Whereas a task that needs interaction would be something like a form where you need to receive new information from somebody and they'll put that information into a form, and that involves human interaction, the person entering info into a form. So when we are thinking about our tasks, we're going to start off with the verb or the action that happens in that task. And that's very useful because it makes it easy to identify the tasks later on. So always start off with your verb, like for instance, request. So here we're going to request an item to be purchased, because in procurement, you need to start off with a request. Now, in this case, that request, as we were saying, is, how is Johnny going to get paper? He's got to make a request for the paper. So here we've got request, purchase of item. I'm going to put it right up at the top. So we've got requesting the purchase of an item, and we've got receiving the ordered item. And we've got to figure out what are all the things that are going to happen in between here. One of those things, one of those key tasks that are needed is we're going to have to pay the supplier for the paper at some point. We can put that in there. Something else that's going to need to happen. A manager has to review the order request, because at some point we've got to decide if Johnny gets to have his paper or not. So we can put that one in there. Review the order request. And then I've got a whole load of green ones over here, and we'll see later why they're green. Let's see. We've got to place the order with the supplier so that at some point the supplier knows that he's got to give us paper. We've got to let the employee know when their order has arrived. Okay, I think that'll do for now. So, now we need to put all of these tasks in order. We need to determine what the flow is of these tasks. And that's why it's useful to use sticky notes. I'm using a big whiteboard to do all of this on, but you can do it just on a piece of paper or on the wall of your office or a big table, whatever's convenient. So let's see, what is the order that these things need to be put in? We've got request the purchase of an item, pay supplier. Well, how are we going to pay? We don't know what they're going to charge yet, so we're going to put that away for now. Once the item has been requested, it can be reviewed. So that goes next. Then once it's been reviewed, if it's been approved, then we're going to place the order with the supplier. Then we're going to pay the supplier. Then hopefully we'll receive our ordered item. And once we've received the ordered item, we can notify the employee of the received order. Right. This looks like it's making a bit of sense now. Things are happening in a specific order, and this is kind of the natural flow of things in a normal office, how these things would have to happen in procurement. Right. Now that we've determined the flow, we need to figure out who the role players are in each of these tasks. Not all tasks need a specific person to have them happen. Like an email will just go off, it'll be sent without a specific person being involved. But there are certain tasks like forms which have to be performed by certain people. So, where is my pen? There we go. If we look at request purchase of an item, that's going to be Johnny. But we're not going to write Johnny because any employee could be requesting that item. So instead, we're going to give the role of that person, Johnny, which is employee. So, there we go. Johnny's role is employee. Next, review the order request. Who's going to review the order request? It's going to be Johnny's manager. Next, we're going to place an order with the supplier. Who's going to place the order? It's not actually going to be the manager, it's going to be the purchasing officer. Then we've got to pay the supplier. That would probably be the finance department. We've got to check if we've received the ordered items, and that would probably be the person at reception. And notifying the employee of the received order, nobody actually has to do that. And for that matter, this over here is an email, and that one doesn't have to have anyone specific do it anyway, so I'm going to cross that out. There we go. All right. So we have figured out who is doing which task. Now that we've assigned the roles, we need to add in connecting tasks. What is a connecting task? This is something that makes sure that the next step is going to happen, because while we do have tasks available to be completed by people, those people may not know that they have a task that they need to do. And this task would be something really simple, like click yes on a form to say we've received payment. But they don't know how. We've got to send them an email to let them know, or an SMS or something like that, to let them know that they have something to do. So I've got some extra little email tasks over here, and I've made them all green so that they're easy to find. One of those things is, not that one. Here we go. Notify a manager of the new request, because otherwise they're not going to know that they have to approve or deny a request. So let's move everything up here. There we go. Soon as the request has been made, the manager will now receive an email to let them know that they have to review the request. Next, we want to put in what data we need in each of these tasks. Data is things like the name of the employee and their email address, what the order is that they want to place, who the supplier is that you're going to order from. All of these kinds of information are very important because otherwise, what's the point of this task flow? So, data. When the employee requests the purchase of an item, they're going to give their name. And this is all in a form. They're going to give their name. So, for instance, Johnny. They're going to give their email address. They've got to give what their order is. So the quantity is important. And what the order is specifically, the item, in this case, paper. And I'm writing this all out on my whiteboard, but you could write it, because you've got a smaller pen, I hope, than what I have, directly onto your tasks so that they're easy to shuffle around, whereas I might have a problem with that later along the line. So, next, in the email that's automatically sent off, we are going to pull in that information. So we're going to tell the manager, but his email address is important, so we've got to pull in the manager's email address. And we're going to give it a subject, which will be new request. And then the content of the email will be all of this information. So the name, the quantity, what the order is, and everything up there. Then the manager is going to have a link at the bottom of the email that's automatically added in by Cotiv, and he's going to be able to click on that link and follow it to where he's going to get to this form, reviewing the order request. Now, in this form, you need to pull in all that same information, what the order is, and then the manager is going to decide if he's going to approve it or not. So we're going to have a little bit of text that says approve the order. And the manager is going to check if it's going to be yes or no. And that's an option you'll be able to add into the form with little radio buttons where you'll just type in approve the order and give the options yes or no, and then down the line the manager will be able to choose one of those options. So, if he chooses yes, then we're going to move on to placing the order with the supplier automatically. And in this email, we're going to need the supplier's email address. Now wait a minute, we don't have the supplier's email address. So we're going to have to make sure that earlier on in the task flow, we got that information. And a good place to do that would probably be right up in this first form, because the employee knows what it is that he's going to order, which means he also probably has a good idea of who would be able to supply the item that he needs. So one of the things that we can add in here, right up here, is supplier and email address of the supplier. And we'll get Johnny to do the work of filling that information in right up at the beginning when he fills in that form. Okay, so now we've got the email address that we need. So we'll have email, and we're going to use something which is a curly bracket eventually, although we're not going to worry about it too much right now. And we're going to pull in the information from up there, and we'll say this is going to be the supplier email address. And then the content of this email is going to be what the order is and the company who ordered it. So we'll pre-write that email, most of the content, and it'll be new order from our company for paper. Okay. Then, after that email has been sent off, we're going to need to pay the supplier, because otherwise they're not going to send us the order. And something that we're leaving out of this one, because it's going to take up too much space on my whiteboard, is the option to include a place where the supplier can upload a quote for you, which you can then see and decide if you like the quote and approve it. But those are all lots of little steps that you could add in, and for now we're going to leave them as manual steps because, yeah, like I said, too much space. So, have we paid the supplier? This is a form which, as we said earlier on, is going to be filled in by the finance department, and they're going to have the option to say yes. And I'm not even going to give them a no option because the form is only here to make sure that they have paid the supplier. Once they have hit yes, they've paid the supplier, then we're going to hopefully receive the ordered items. This is another form which will be completed by reception. And we'll say received items. And we'll pull in all of the information so they have a bit of context about which items they've received. So, order info, and then they also have the option to say yes, or of course no. If it's very late, they can say no, and we can also set off a whole bunch of extra things, like sending an email to follow up with a supplier. So, either we've got yes or we've got no. So either, if it's yes, we'll notify the employee to come on over to reception, pick up your order because it has been received, or if it's no, we're going to follow up with the supplier. Okay, and now with this yes-no thing over here and this yes-no thing over here, you can see these are conditions that we're actually putting into place. And there are a lot of conditions that you can include in a task flow, some of them being options, yes or no. In this case, yes, approve the order, then we're going to place the order, or no. If we're not going to approve the order, what are we going to do? We've got to let the employee know that, I'm sorry, Johnny, you can't have any paper. So, we'll notify Johnny, the employee, of request denied. And we can put that in. I'm just going to stick it in over there and hide things that we talked about previously. And while we're at it with emailing this employee, we may as well also email them if the request has been approved so that they know they're not waiting around to hear yes or no. I'm never going to find out if it's a yes until they've received the order. So we can also notify Johnny, the employee, that his request has been approved at the same time as placing the order with the supplier. So these are some of the conditions, like I was saying, with yes or no conditions. There are other conditions, which are the roles that we were speaking about over here with the employee, the manager over here, the finance department, and we set up conditions in our task flows and we say only the employee will be able to fill in this form. Or if it isn't a manager over here, for instance, with reviewing the order request, if a manager isn't logged in, they're not allowed to see it because you don't want an employee to go and review something that a manager is supposed to do. So with these roles, we'll be able to have specific conditions that mean the form will only show up if it's the right person viewing it, which is very useful. Okay, and then something else when it comes to requirements, we can either have multiple requirements that have to happen, or multiple requirements where one thing could be, okay, cool, it's allowed to happen, or the other thing instead. So this is an and or an or situation. We have an and example over here where we have the pay supplier form popping up. So the first condition that happens for paying a supplier is the role has to be the finance department. So role is finance. And for this form to show up, we have to have the situation in which the order is approved. So the other condition would be approve the order is yes. All right. So this is one place where you would have to have both of those conditions be fulfilled before the form would show up. Because if approve the order is no, and the finance department logs in, they're not going to see this form anyway. No means that the only thing that will happen is the email will be sent off to the employee saying, I'm sorry, no paper for you. But you won't have the finance department seeing anything further. Once you've done this yourself for your own task flow that you need to automate, you can look at it one last time, see are there any things that I can merge together or get rid of, or do I need to add a few things in? Do I want to shuffle the order about a little bit more to make it make more sense? And there are other things that you'll find yourself that you'll be able to compress or remove. And once you're happy with all of that and it's laid out the way that you want it to be and you can't think of anything else that you would do in your own company that would fill in any of these steps, create an account for yourself in Cotive. Either select a template that has already been set up following this task flow design, or start yourself from fresh and do it the way that you think is best.